Did you know that from just one familiar piece of ginger in the kitchen, we can make a jar of pickled ginger and vinegar that is easy to eat, convenient to use every day, and especially suitable for slightly chilly days? Many people usually only use ginger for cooking, making tea, or removing odors from food, but in fact, if you know how to prepare it and pickle it properly, ginger can also become a very interesting side dish, mildly sour, lightly fragrant, and very suitable to eat with rice or together with rich, oily dishes. Hello everyone, I'm Mary. Today, I will share with you the way I make pickled ginger and vinegar in a very simple style, easy to do right at home. This method is not complicated, and the ingredients are also very familiar, but the finished result is neat, beautiful, and can be stored for gradual use. If you already have a few pieces of ginger at home, let's make it together right away. First of all, I have some ginger bought from the supermarket. Looking at the outside, it seems clean already, but in fact, in the small crevices of the ginger, dirt and dust still often stick there. So, the first step I always do is break the ginger into slightly smaller branches. Doing that makes it easier to wash, and we can also see more clearly which parts need to be cleaned carefully. If you are using freshly dug ginger that still has a lot of dirt on it, you can soak or wash it with a little salt or baking soda to feel more at ease. But if the ginger is bought from the market or supermarket and already looks quite clean, then just washing it thoroughly several times with water is enough. When washing, remember to look carefully at each piece. Any piece that shows signs of bruising, rotting, or mold should be cut away immediately. If the damaged part is too much, then it is best to discard it completely. Do not be reluctant. Because if you keep even one piece that is no longer fresh, the whole jar of ginger later can also easily be affected in flavor. If you want a good pickled dish, then right from the beginning, the ingredients must be clean and intact. Another point that I really like about ginger is that the skin also has its own fragrance. So in this method, I do not peel off the entire skin, but only wash it very carefully to keep its rustic character and the natural fragrance of the ginger. After the ginger has been cleaned, I prepare the steamer. I place each piece of ginger on the steaming rack, trying to arrange them in a single layer neatly, without stacking them on top of one another too much. I do that so the heat can circulate evenly, and every piece is heated in the same way. When the water begins to boil strongly, I lower the heat to medium and steam for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on whether the pieces of ginger are large or small. This step is very worth doing, because after steaming, the smell of the ginger becomes more gentle, and the spicy sharpness also becomes less intense. For those who used to find ginger a little difficult to eat, this method will make ginger much easier to enjoy. When I open the lid of the pot, the smell of ginger rises up very fragrantly, the kind of warm aroma that feels very pleasant in the kitchen. The slices of ginger after steaming will become a little softer, with a lightly glossy surface, and when you hold them, they no longer feel as hard as they did at first. This is the time when we can take them out and prepare to slice them. When the ginger has cooled down a bit, I place it on the cutting board and slice it into thin pieces. At this step, you do not need to cut it paper thin, but you should not cut it too thick either. The important thing is to try to cut the slices relatively evenly. Why do I emphasize this point? Because if the slices are uneven in thickness, it will be very difficult to balance the flavor when pickling. Pieces that are too thin will absorb the sourness too quickly, while thicker pieces will take longer to absorb it, and when eating, they will still remain much stronger inside. As long as you take a little care to slice them evenly, the jar of ginger later will be much tastier and much more beautiful. After slicing the ginger, I do not pickle it right away, but let it air out a little first so it can become less moist. Because the ginger has just been steamed and still contains some moisture, if it is put into the jar right away, that excess moisture may affect the quality of the pickled jar later. We only need to let it air out lightly, not dry it until it becomes hard. At this point, I arrange the ginger slices on a baking tray, spreading them out evenly so the slices do not overlap too much. After that, I put them into the oven and set it to about 90 to 100 degrees Celsius for the first 10 minutes. The purpose of this step is only to make the surface of the ginger slices a little drier, so that when pickled, the flavor in the jar will be clearer and more beautiful. When the 10 minutes are over, I take the tray out and gently turn the ginger slices over so that both sides can dry more evenly. After that, I put them back into the oven and let them dry for about 15 more minutes. At this step, you only need to observe that the edges of the ginger slices have tightened slightly. The surface is no longer too wet, but the ginger pieces are still soft and pliable. Do not dry them too much, because if the ginger becomes hard, then when pickled, it will no longer be as good as desired. If your home does not have an oven, you can also use a food dehydrator, or leave them in a clean, airy place for a few hours so they can dry off a little more. But for me, using the oven is still the most convenient way because it is easy to control the temperature, easy to observe, and dries very evenly. When the ginger has finished drying, I prepare 2 glass jars that are clean and completely dry. Jars used for pickling should be truly clean, with no water or oil left inside, so that the finished result will stay stable and keep its flavor better. First, I make the first jar with rice vinegar. I put the ginger into the jar in a moderate amount, not packing it too tightly. After that, I add a little rock sugar so that the sourness becomes gentler and the taste will be more balanced. Then I pour in the rice vinegar until it completely covers the ginger. Rice vinegar has a light fragrance and a soft sourness, so after this jar of ginger is finished pickling, it will give a feeling that is very easy to enjoy, clean, and gentle. Next is the second jar, which I make in a slightly richer style. I also put the ginger into the jar until it reaches about 2/3 of the jar, then add a little honey to create a balanced sweetness. After that, I pour in the balsamic vinegar until it covers the ginger. This type of vinegar has a deeper aroma and a darker color, so the finished jar of ginger will also have a very distinctive flavor, richer in sweet and sour taste and noticeably more fragrant. 2 jars of ginger, 2 different flavor styles, but the method is very simple. 1 jar is light, gentle, and clean with rice vinegar. 1 jar is richer and more fragrant with balsamic vinegar and honey. If you prefer a traditional taste, you may lean toward the rice vinegar jar. But if you want a jar of ginger with a richer and more distinctive flavor, then the balsamic vinegar jar will be very worth trying. Normally, after only about 1 day, the ginger already begins to be ready to use. At this point, the original spicy sharpness has already softened quite a lot. If you leave it longer for a few more days, the ginger will absorb even more flavor, and it will taste fuller and more rounded. I like best to use a few slices of this pickled ginger with a meal, or eat it together with dishes that have a strong taste and a lot of oil. It creates a very neat feeling in the mouth, and after eating, it feels more pleasant. For many older people, rustic dishes like this are often the kind of thing that makes them feel more appetizing. Not only the ginger itself, but after some time, the pickling vinegar also becomes very fragrant. Some people like to dilute it a little and use it in their own way. That means that from just a few familiar pieces of ginger, we can already make a jar of pickled ginger and vinegar that is neat, fragrant, delicious, and convenient to use every day. I truly like dishes like this, because they are not too complicated and do not require difficult techniques, but they still bring the feeling that the home kitchen is always warm and abundant. If your home also often has ginger available in the kitchen, please try making a jar this way and see how it goes. Maybe after making it, this will become a familiar dish that you will always want to keep ready in your kitchen cabinet. Thank you for staying with me until the end of the video.